Welcome back to the deep dive. I was looking through the research for today, and it got me thinking about political branding. Usually when a politician gets a nickname, it's it's not a compliment. It's usually pretty brutal.
Oh, absolutely. It's almost always a weapon. You think of Tricky Dick Nixon or Slick Willie Clinton. They're these sticky labels that your opponents just slap on you to highlight some kind of character flaw. It's really negative branding 101.
Right. It's something you spend your entire career trying to scrape off your shoe. But today, we're unpacking a story where the exact opposite happened. We're looking at a politician who didn't just accept a nickname. She bear hugged it. She made it her own. She essentially merged her identity with it until it became her legal middle name.
Mable Thomas. It is one of the most enduring, self-reinforcing brands in the history of Georgia politics.
And looking at these files, biographical records, legislative history, old ballot results,
Yeah.
we aren't just looking at a quirky name. We're looking at a masterclass in survival.
Yeah.
This is a woman who navigated the shark tank of Atlanta politics for nearly 40 years.
And that's really the mission for this deep dive.
Mm.
We want to understand how someone survives that long in an arena that, well, it usually chews people up and spits them out in just a few terms. We're going to trace her path from the English Avenue neighborhood all the way to the Gold Dome and look at the kind of resilience it takes to keep running, even when you're losing.
And trust me, looking at this timeline, there is plenty of losing mixed in with the winning. It's not a straight line at the top at all. It's a jagged line. So let's start at the foundation. Before she was able, who was Mable Thomas?
To understand Mable Thomas, you really have to understand the geography. She was born November 8th, 1957, in Atlanta. But specifically, she was raised in the English Avenue neighborhood.
Okay, for our listeners who might not be familiar with Atlanta's layout, paint the picture for us. Is this like the wealthy suburbs?
No, far from it. English Avenue is a historic black community just west of downtown. Back in the late 50s and 60s, this was a working-class stronghold. But it's an area that has faced pretty significant economic hardship over the decades. It's a place that requires a certain toughness.
And her family background reflects that grit, right?
Definitely. She was the youngest of 5 children, and her father, Bernard Thomas, was a boiler operator.
Wait, boiler operator. I mean, that's a job that implies heat, pressure, getting your hands dirty.
Precisely. There is no evidence in these files of some political dynasty here. No famous uncles, no inherited donor network. She didn't start on third base. She started in the dugout.
Now, there's a detail in her high school and college years that I think is just crucial to her psychology. She wasn't in the debate club. She was in the gym.
Right. She graduated from Booker T. Washington High School in 1975, but the pivotal detail for me is that she earned a scholarship to play women's basketball for the Georgia State Panthers.
I want to pause on that because I feel like the whole athlete-to-politician pipeline is a real thing, but we rarely break down why. What does playing competitive basketball at the college level teach you that applies to the state legislature?
It teaches you 2 things that are absolutely essential for a long career. First, it teaches you about spacing, just knowing where you are on the court relative to everyone else. In politics, that's knowing your coalition. Second, and maybe more importantly, it teaches you about the shot clock. You have to make decisions under pressure, and you have to have physical endurance. Campaigning is exhausting. If you can run lines in practice, you can knock on doors for 8 hours in July.
That makes so much sense. You build up a tolerance for the grind. But she wasn't just running drills. The notes say she was also studying something very specific while she was at Georgia State.
This is the key insight for her early career. She earned a Bachelor of Science in Public Administration in 1982.
Okay, help us out here. Public administration sounds a little dry. How is that different from, say, a political science degree?
That's a great distinction. Political science is often about the theory of power campaigns, voting behavior, all that. It's the why. Public administration is the how. It's the actual mechanics of government. It's budgeting, it's zoning laws, it's HR. It's how a bill actually becomes a statute. So by studying that, Thomas wasn't just learning how to get elected. She was learning how the machine works once you're inside the building.
So she walks into the arena knowing the rule book better than the people who are already there.
Exactly. She understood the levers. And she didn't wait long to pull them. 1984 is the breakout year in all the documents.
1984. I mean, this is a massive year in American politics, specifically for black politics.
Huge. Jesse Jackson is running for president. It's the Rainbow Coalition era. Mable Thomas gets involved as a presidential delegate for Jackson at the DNC. That puts her right in the room with the national heavyweights.
But she doesn't just want to be a delegate. She decides to run for office herself that same year. And looking at this, she makes a decision that, on paper, looks completely irrational.
Irrational, like a suicide mission.
Right. She decides to run for the Georgia House of Representatives.
Yeah.
But she doesn't run for an open seat. She challenges the incumbent, Grace Towns Hamilton, in the Democratic primary.
And Grace Towns Hamilton was the first African-American woman ever elected to the Georgia General Assembly. She was a legend. She was known as the most powerful black woman in Atlanta politics, part of the old guard.
So you have Mable Thomas, who's in her 20s, walking up to a living legend and saying, "Move over."
It's like a rookie trying to dunk on Michael Jordan in their first game. It's not just ambitious. It was almost seen as disrespectful by the establishment.
So what was the dynamic there? Was it just new versus old?
It was generational, for sure. You had the established civil rights leadership versus the post-civil rights generation who wanted, faster action, more aggression. And against all odds, Thomas won.
That victory must have sent a shockwave through the city.
It did. It made Mable Thomas the youngest member of the Georgia General Assembly at that time. She was the giant killer. And this is right around the time the nickname shows up.
Legend begins.
Right around 84, 85, a colleague coined the phrase Able Mable.
Is it just because it rhymes? I mean, it's catchy, but was there more to it?
Well, the implication was competence. Able implies utility. I'm able to get this done. In a world of bureaucratic red tape, being known as the person who is able is a very strong value proposition.
And the fact that she eventually made it her legal middle name, I just think that's brilliant. It's basically SEO for the ballot.
It is. Think about the voter in the booth. They're looking at a list of names. Smith, Jones, Thomas, all blurs together, but Able Mable, you remember the rhyme? It distinguishes her from every other name on that list. It's a masterstroke.
So she's in the House. She's the young star. She serves 4 terms, 1985 to 1993. Most politicians would just stay there, build seniority, maybe run for speaker. But Thomas does something weird in 1997. She leaves the state legislature to run for Atlanta City Council.
And this is where the career weave begins. It confuses a lot of political observers.
To me, going from the state house to the city council feels like a demotion. At the state house, you're making laws for millions of people.
Yeah.
City council is all trash pickup. Why make that move?
See, I'd challenge the premise that it's a demotion. It really depends on what your goal is. If your goal is prestige and cocktail parties, yeah, the state house is better. But if your goal is tangible impact on your specific neighborhood, the city council is where the power is.
Break that down for us. What can a council member do that a state rep can't?
Zoning. That is the biggest one. The state rep can't stop a liquor store from opening next to a school. The state rep can't make sure the potholes on English Avenue get filled this week. The city council controls the police budget, the water mains, the trash schedule, land use. For a politician like Thomas, who was obsessed with her specific slice of West Atlanta, the city council offered a toolkit that the state house didn't. She could pull levers that immediately changed the view out her constituents' windows.
That makes perfect sense. She wanted to get her hands on the actual machinery of the city. So she serves on the council from 97 to 2002. She's an at-large member, post 1. Does at-large mean she represented the whole city?
Yes. She was elected by the entire city of Atlanta, not just one district, so she had citywide name recognition.
But then the weave continues. In 2003, she goes back to the State House.
She returns to the Gold Dome. She represents District 43, which later becomes District 55, and then District 56.
I noticed those numbers jumping around in the note, 31, 43, 55, 56. Was she moving houses every few years?
No, she stayed put. The map moved around her. This is a concept called redistricting.
Which is always a headache to explain.
It is, but here's the short version. Every 10 years after the census, the legislature has to redraw the map so every district has roughly the same number of people. A politician can wake up one morning and find that their street is now in a different district, or that half their voters are new.
That sounds chaotic for a career. How do you build a base if the lines keep moving?
It kills a lot of careers. But Thomas survived it because her brand was stronger than the map. She consistently represented that core area west and southwest of downtown, parts of Midtown. No matter what number the state slapped on the district, the people in those neighborhoods knew Able Mable.
So we have this picture of a hyper-local politician. She knows the streets, she knows the zoning codes, but there is this other side to her file that seems completely contradictory. While she's grinding it out in local office, she keeps taking these massive, long-shot swings at federal office.
This is maybe the most controversial part of her record.
We have to talk about her challenging John Lewis.
Yes.
I mean, we need to put this in context for people. John Lewis wasn't just a congressman. He was a secular saint, the hero of Selma. He was beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
He was a moral icon. Running against John Lewis in Atlanta is like running against the Pope in the Vatican. It's just not done. You don't challenge the hero.
But she did it. Twice.
1992 and 2008, both times in the Democratic primary.
What's the logic there? Is it delusion? Or is there a strategy I'm missing?
It's easy to dismiss it as ego, but if you look at her history, remember, Gracetown's Hamilton Thomas clearly believed that incumbency is not a birthright. There's a school of thought that says every seat should be contested every time. It keeps the incumbent sharp. It forces a debate.
Did she actually think she could win?
That's hard to say, but she campaigned like she could. She argued that while Lewis was a national hero, the district had local needs that weren't being met. It was that classic local servant versus national icon argument.
And did she come close?
Not really. Lewis defeated her soundly both times. But the fact that she was willing to put her name on the ballot against him speaks to that fearlessness we talked about. She wasn't afraid of the establishment.
And she didn't stop with the House. The notes mention a Senate run.
Yes. In October 2019, she announced she was running for the U.S. Senate.
The setting for that announcement was pretty interesting. A conference called Let's Talk About Sex.
Right, organized by Sister Song. It was a reproductive justice conference, so that gives you a clue about her platform. She was very focused on women's health and bodily autonomy.
Then in 2020, tragedy strikes. John Lewis passes away.
And suddenly that seat, the 5th district, is actually open. It's not a symbolic challenge anymore. It's a scramble.
And Mable Thomas jumps in.
She ran in the special election to fill the remainder of his term. She didn't make the runoff.
It's a tough pattern to look at.
Yeah.
She dominates at the local level, winning the state house, winning city council, but every time she tries to go federal, she hits a brick wall.
It really highlights the difference between local fame and federal viability. The skills required to fix zoning in English Avenue aren't necessarily the skills that big national donors look for in a U.S. senator. It's just a different game.
But here's the thing about the Able brand. She takes a loss, but she doesn't go home. We skipped over a defeat in the timeline that I want to circle back to because I think it's the most revealing one. 2010.
Ah, yes, the 2010 primary.
She was running for her old House seat, District 55 at the time, and she lost to Rashad Taylor.
Correct.
So she's out. No office, not on the council, not in the House.
For most people, losing a seat you've held for years is a career ender. It signals that the voters are tired of you. You take the hint, you retire, you become a lobbyist.
But Mable Thomas.
She waits, she regroups, and in 2013, she runs for District 56 and wins.
She got back in the game.
She served another 8 years, from January 2013 until January 2021.
That resilience is what's so impressive.
Yeah.
It goes back to the basketball analogy. She's the player who misses the shot, gets her own rebound, and puts it back up immediately.
That is the perfect metaphor. She had a short memory for failure, which is, I think, a requirement for any long-term politician. She didn't let the loss define her. She just reapplied for her job.
So how does the story end? Or at least how does this chapter close?
In March 2020, she announced she wouldn't seek re-election. She retired from the Georgia House on January 11th, 2021.
That's nearly 40 years after she first walked onto the floor as the youngest member.
It's a lifetime. Think about the changes in Atlanta between 1984 and 2021. The Olympics came and went, the population boomed, the West Side gentrified. And she was a legislative constant through all of it.
The notes mention her personal life briefly toward the end.
She's a member of the Cosmopolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church, and we shouldn't overlook that. The church is so often the bedrock of political organizing in the Black community in the South. That connection likely fueled her longevity as much as her policy positions did.
As we step back and look at the legend of Able Mable, what is the big takeaway here? Is it the wins, or is it something else?
I think the takeaway is about the definition of service. We tend to glorify the politicians who give big speeches on cable news, the viral moments. But Mable Thomas spent decades in the rooms where the boring work happens. Committee meetings, budget hearings, zoning boards.
The unglamorous stuff.
The essential stuff. When she retired, she took a massive amount of institutional memory with her. She knew why a law was written that way in 1995 because she was in the room when they wrote it. You can't replace that easily.
And she did it all while ensuring that you literally could not forget her name.
Legally, you had to read the word able to vote for her.
It really changes how I think about political ambition. We look at people climbing the ladder, trying to get to the top rung, but maybe the real power is just holding on to the ladder for 40 years so it doesn't fall over.
That's a powerful way to put it. Stability has a value all its own. In a city that changes as fast as Atlanta, Mable Thomas was a landmark.
Well, that's our deep dive on the life and career of Mable Able Thomas. From the basketball court to the Gold Dome, she's certainly made her mark.
And change the ballot forever.
Here's a thought I want to leave you with today. We often judge a politician's success by how high they climb state rep to senator to president. But Mable Thomas bounced between the State House and City Hall. Makes you wonder, where does a politician actually touch your life? Is it in Washington passing some trillion-dollar bill? Or is it the person who ensures the streetlights on your block actually turn on at night? Mable Thomas seemed to think the latter was worth a 40-year fight. Thanks for listening.
Good book.